Next, we're going to return to getters and setters, which we discussed back when we covered JavaScript classes. If you skip that, if you're not familiar with getters and setters, I would watch that video because I'm just going to blow through it here and just talk about how it pertains to TypeScript rather than teaching all the concepts from scratch because we've already covered that. Okay, so in TypeScript, we can have classes with getters and setters or object accessors, I don't know where the emphasis goes in that word. And let's just do one real quick for full name. So full name is not a property that exists, right? It's going to be a computed property here with first and last combined with a space. So I'll say get full name, and then I'll return just a string template literal. I did this earlier, but this time it's technically TypeScript. So this dot first space, this dot last. Okay, so nothing new here. This is valid in TypeScript. If we look at full name, Elton.fullname, I treat it as a property, and there we are. It knows that it's going to be of type string, but if I wanted to, I can annotate it here and say this returned a string, right? Instead of letting it infer, I can just be explicit. This is a string property. Now, I don't have a setter for full name, so by default, TypeScript is going to make them read only anytime it sees a property name that does not have a setter. It only has a getter. So if I try and change full name like that, it's going to yell at me and say you cannot assign to it because it's a read-only property. Now, of course, I could add in a setter for full name. I'm not going to in this case, but I could. Why don't we do one more pair? Let's work with score. So we have score, which is private here. What I'll probably do is change this to be underscore with a score. It's an underscore score. And that will be what is only accessible inside the class. And then I can add in my getter for a property called score, which will be publicly visible. So it's just called score. And we can annotate it. It will return a number. And then in here, we'll simply return this dot underscore score. So I'm just wrapping this hidden or private property with a getter that is publicly available. So I could access, Elton.score, but I don't want someone coming in and saying, Elton, I don't want them to access our underscore score. That's the private part. You don't touch those private parts. But I could add a setter in, and this setter, just like I did in the previous section, could have some logic, some intermediate logic. So set score, and it will accept a new score. And we annotate that. It's of type number. And then TypeScript actually doesn't want you to have any return type annotations for setters. So even if I'm saying, yeah, this is not going to return anything, which it's not supposed to return anything, it will complain. Say a set accessor cannot have a return type. All right. And then in here, I'll just check to see if your new score you're trying to use is less than 0. We'll throw a new error, right? So we're wrapping up this hidden, it's not hidden, but this private property, underscore score. That's the true value of the score. And then we're exposing a little wrapper for it. You're allowed to look at it via this getter, and you're allowed to set it, but only if you meet our requirements. So throw new error, score, oh, that's not score. Score cannot be negative. Otherwise, if we made it past that, then we'll set this dot underscore score to be the new score. Okay. So now I can do, something like Elton.score equals 99, and that will actually be updating underscore score, right? If we come over here, we look at Elton, we see underscore score is set to 99. However, TypeScript doesn't care. It's not smart enough to know that this isn't allowed because that's additional logic in here, right? That's checking at runtime if our new score is less than 0. So if I run it, I'll get an error. Score cannot be, I misspelled cannot be negative. But TypeScript can't interfere there. It can't do anything. However, it can complain if I tried to set it to a string because it has a type, hence TypeScript. The string is not accessible or is not assignable to type number. Okay, so that's nothing really new. It's just showing, a TypeScript class that has a getter and a setter. And these aren't specific to TypeScript. This is all JavaScript, at least modern JavaScript. Unlike, private and public, which are words that only exist in the language of TypeScript.